Stephen, why did you decide to talk about this issue now?
Sangeeta, lovely to talk to you. The Church of England has had a process over the last few years of studying relationships and marriage and identity and sexuality called Living in Love and Faith. And we've just now come to the point where we've asked a lot of people right across the church what they think. And the bishops of the Church of England together are working on trying to discern what it's right to bring back to our General Synod in February. So I've chosen to put my own views into the public domain as part of that process. I hope it'll be helpful to people across the Thames Valley, the Diocese of Oxford, and I hope it'll be helpful to the bishops more widely as we look at this issue and how to take a more positive approach to same-sex relationships and same-sex marriage.
What do you think has changed, though, over the last decade?
I think a huge amount has changed for people. A decade ago, we didn't have the legislation which now permits same-sex marriage. That came in 2014. That's been a really significant change, and I think many LGBT people have found it very hard indeed that the Church has not moved to embrace same-sex relationships and same-sex marriage more positively. So a lot of the listening I've been doing in recent years has been to that sense of pain and difficulty. We also now have more people openly in permanent, stable, same-sex relationships, and it's been possible to learn much more about the value of those relationships, how much they mean to those who are part of them, what a good, stable basis they give both to society and to children. And as a church, we've needed to reflect on that, whatever our individual views. And I think slowly the Church of England is coming to a much more positive position around same-sex relationships and same-sex marriage. And that's the position I've come to across all of that listening.
But Bishop Stephen, many do not hold the same views, do they? And that's problematic for the Church.
It is challenging and difficult, and we've been this way before over a number of issues across the last 100 years. The Church's attitudes to divorce and remarriage were very slow to change. It took us about a generation to get there, but in the end, a sense of wanting to serve the whole community and communicate love and mercy actually steered us forwards. The Church's position on the role of women in society and women in the Church we've been wrestling with for 100 years, and that reached a conclusion a few years ago, finally, as women were able to become bishops in the Church. So we have negotiated these changes in the past, and you're right, a lot of people feel deeply and strongly on both sides of these issues. There's a community that very much wants change, and there's a community within the Church that very much wants to hold on to the traditional view of marriage. I think it's unlikely that we're going to change all at the same time, but I think what we need to do as a church is give greater freedom to clergy and to local churches to follow what they believe to be right on this, and some will choose to go ahead and bless same-sex marriage and same-sex relationships, and others will hold back. But I think together we can still walk together, and what we'll have in common is greater than the differences we have on this one issue.
Bishop Stephen, the reason that we're talking to you today is because you are the first from the Church that felt that an apology was needed to the LGBTQ+ community.
I've said in the book that I published yesterday how sorry I am that my views have changed so slowly, and how sorry I am that the Church has been slow to reach more positive decisions on this issue. It's been really moving to read some of the responses I've had to that as part of what I've said, and also the welcome that's been given to the more positive side of what I've had to say. I am sorry for the hurt and pain caused. It's taken us a long time even to get to this point, and we're not there yet by any means. And also LGBT people have felt for a long time that they've been talked about rather than talked with, and I'm sorry for that as well. But I hope we're learning lessons as we go, and learning to do things better and differently moving forward.
And briefly, the National Assembly of the Church of England, the General Synod, will take place in February next year. Will this issue be on the agenda, and have you spoken to the Archbishop of Canterbury about this?
This will certainly be on the agenda for February, and the bishops of the Church together, including Archbishop Justin and Archbishop Stephen, are committed to bringing something to the General Synod which will help us navigate the way forward, and we're in the process of a series of 3 meetings to help us discern together what that should be, and we're very grateful for all the input we've received from around the country and for the prayers of the Church in that process. We've only had the first of those meetings. It was Monday to Wednesday of this week. It was a really prayerful, serious, hopeful meeting. So we're not quite there yet in knowing what will come to Synod, but we have begun that process, and we have another 3 days of residential meetings in December and a single-day meeting in January before we get to the February General Synod.
Stephen Croft, the Bishop of Oxford, thank you for talking to us today.
Thank you, Sangeeta, very